Hi, I'm Jim from Trek World. What if one script was so explosive, so unfilmable, so fiercely defended that it nearly tore Star Trek apart from the inside, before becoming its most haunting masterpiece?
The following program is brought to you in living color by Trek World.
The following video is the most current in a series of videos that will give you a truly unique viewpoint of the behind-the-scenes happenings during production of Star Trek: The Original Series. The video is based entirely and exclusively on the book Inside Star Trek, which was written by Herb Solow and Bob Justman. You will find an affiliated link in the description that will take you to Amazon to check on availability of a good deal. I highly recommend that you buy a copy of this book and read it. Between this book and The Making of Star Trek by Stephen Whitfield and Gene Roddenberry, you have the only insiders present at those earliest days to carry these stories forward. Or, as they say, straight from the horse's mouth. There's a kind of electricity that crackles through the book whenever Harlan Ellison's name appears. The kind you feel when two storms collide. You sense it immediately. The tension, the admiration, the exhaustion, and the bruises left behind. Ellison wasn't just a writer. He was a force. A Category 5 creative hurricane who rarely walked into a room so much as detonate inside it. And yet, for all the friction, Star Trek desperately wanted and needed voices like his. But the price was high. For everyone. What the book reveals is far more nuanced than folklore. We often reduce the story to a simple narrative. Ellison wrote City on the Edge of Forever, Roddenberry rewrote it, Ellison exploded. But the reality, preserved in the recollections and emotional fingerprints of the production team, is far more complex. A saga of ambition, clashing philosophies, impossible deadlines, and a writer who poured everything he had into a script that was never going to survive intact. The moment Ellison entered the picture, you can feel Justman and Roddenberry bracing themselves. Not because they didn't respect him, they deeply did, but because Ellison's reputation preceded him. He was brilliant, intense, argumentative, volcanic. And when he believed in something, he believed with his entire soul. Star Trek needed that fire. But television struggles to contain someone like that. Ellison turned in the first draft of City, and the reaction was immediate. Astonishment. The book captures this beautifully. People were moved, captivated. The writing was lyrical, tragic, devastating in places, but it was also unshootable. Expensive, structurally incompatible with an ongoing series, and filtered entirely through Ellison's worldview rather than the more optimistic moral framework Roddenberry demanded. That tension is the heart of the story. Roddenberry wasn't angry. He was overwhelmed. The script was magnificent, but impractical. Scenes that required sets they couldn't build. Crowds they couldn't hire. Moments the actors couldn't deliver without breaking the characters they had carefully established over months of production. Ellison was writing literature. Roddenberry was producing television, and the two collided like starships at warp. But the real conflict wasn't technical. It was philosophical. Ellison's humanity was flawed, raw, desperate. He believed drama came from brokenness, addiction, crime, moral compromise, characters falling apart under pressure, and in his script, the darkness felt honest and necessary. Roddenberry, on the other hand, insisted that the future humanity he imagined had transcended those weaknesses. His characters, especially his leads, couldn't be addicts, deserters, criminals, or failures. They had to embody what we were striving toward, not what we were trying to escape. So when Ellison's script opened with a drug-addicted crewman selling out the Enterprise, Roddenberry saw an existential threat to the entire series. The book makes that moment unmistakably clear. This wasn't a disagreement. It was a line in the sand. And that line carried an emotional charge that never went away. Ellison was furious that Roddenberry wouldn't allow the darkness. Roddenberry was furious that Ellison wouldn't accept the system he was writing within. The production staff, especially Justman, found themselves in the middle, admiring Ellison's talent while desperately trying to wrestle the script into something filmable. That wrestling match took months. Draft after draft came in. Changes were requested, some were accepted, many weren't. The book even captures the subtle shifts in tone among the staff. First excitement, then concern, then fatigue.
Ellison is rewriting the show again.
One staffer murmured.
Roddenberry is rewriting Ellison again.
Another sighed. It became a loop, a creative loop with razor edges. At one point, according to the book's emotional rhythm, meetings with Ellison became so intense that Roddenberry began handling revisions indirectly. Scripts circulated with marginalia, notes softened, deadlines tightened, diplomacy grew thin. And Ellison reached a breaking point. Because to Ellison, rewriting wasn't collaboration, it was vandalism. He had delivered a story with jagged poetry, grief, sacrifice, a moral paradox so elegant it barely felt like television. But to Roddenberry, the paradox asked Starfleet officers to behave in ways he could not allow. Ellison's characters wandered into moral territory that broke the ethos of the series. So Roddenberry rewrote, and rewrote, and rewrote. The book reveals that other writers were pulled in as well to soften blows, tighten scenes, make dialogue feel like the established characters. In some corners, this felt like triage. In others, betrayal. Ellison saw the rewrites not as improvements, but as ideological interference, tampering, detuning the music he was trying to orchestrate. And as the weeks dragged on, his temper, always volcanic to begin with, ignited. He confronted Roddenberry. Roddenberry confronted him. Both men believed they were right. Both believed the show depended on preserving their vision. That's the tragedy of the story. They were both right. Ellison's script would have been a breathtaking science fiction film. Roddenberry's version would become one of the greatest hours of television ever made. And in that contradiction, you find the emotional heartache preserved inside the book, the sorrow, the pride, the disappointment. Ellison was devastated. Roddenberry was tired. The staff was burned out. But then, something astonishing happened. The episode aired, and it was magnificent. Different from Ellison's draft, but elevated by it, shaped by it, haunted by it. The book captures the sense of awe that spread across Desilu. Even those exhausted by the conflict admitted that Ellison's fingerprints remained everywhere. In the bones of the story, in the emotional gravity, in the tragic rhythm of Edith Keeler's fate. But Ellison didn't feel awe. He felt wounded. He felt erased. And over time, years, decades, the wound calcified. He spoke at conventions, wrote essays, gave interviews, and every time he returned to the same theme. His script had been butchered, ruined, damaged by people who didn't understand it. The book, however, shows that the staff did understand. They simply couldn't produce what he delivered. Television demanded compromise. Ellison demanded purity. And those two ideals were destined to collide. Was he right to be angry? Yes. From his perspective, utterly. Was Roddenberry right to protect the show's vision? Absolutely. That dual truth is what makes this story resonate so deeply. Ellison never forgave them. Roddenberry never apologized. And the production team never forgot the emotional cost. What remains now is something bittersweet. A sense of awe at the beauty Ellison created, and a sense of admiration for the version that finally reached the screen. Two masterpieces, one possible, one impossible, forever linked by collision. Great art isn't always born from harmony. Sometimes it comes from fire, sometimes from heartbreak, sometimes from two men who both believed they were saving the story. And when you watch City on the Edge of Forever today, you can still feel both voices whispering through it. Ellison's poetry, Roddenberry's philosophy, and the tension that shaped them both.